Hi everyone, I am Vie Darling, the Cosmic Queen, and your astral interpreter of ethereal energy, messages, I don't know, whatever. Cosmic interpreter, cosmic queen, cosmic interpreter. I don't know anymore. And that's okay. I feel like there's just a lot for us to not know. However, more is being revealed, and it's being revealed now as Mercury is going to be retrograde starting on the 29th of May until the 22nd of June. And Saturn is actually retrograde right now. 17 would be, yeah, not yet, but in about an hour, Saturn is going to be retrograde, right? I think so. It may have happened yesterday for those of us who are not on GMT, because what I do know is that 9:19 GMT on Sunday, the 23rd of May, today, that's the day that I'm recording this, Saturn went retrograde. And so, yeah, now I have this screen, which is great because, like, y'all know how I felt about like my background. It's not the permanent screen that I'm gonna have back there, but right now I really like it. I really like it a lot. So that's cool. But anyway, yeah, we're gonna be talking about these retrogrades, right? That's what we're gonna be talking about because that's what's important right now. It's what's happening in the cosmos, and I'm just going to do this one video. I'm not going to do multiple videos because that doesn't really make a lot of sense and is not time efficient for me, nor is it really time efficient for all of you. And for the sake of time, I have already taken my notes. Y'all know that I'm back on taking the notes. Recently, I think the last time I did that, I started doing that again for Gemini season. And the reason why I stopped is because I went back to school. And when I am in school, I simply do not have the bandwidth to do this work at the level that I, really like to. And so before I created this Patreon, actually, and you all know this because you've been following me for a while, right? Before I created this Patreon, I was the resident astrologer for Sad Girls Club. And I at the point of me creating the Patreon, I had actually stopped doing that work, and I had actually stopped doing readings at all because I was going through a massive spiritual awakening. And so in the time that I took away from doing that work actively, I created the structures for this Patreon for this first round. And I feel like it'll probably stay kind of like this until for the first year, but there are changes that I would like to make having gone through this first year with all of you. I think that there are just changes that could like make this a little bit better for the community. And yeah, so that all being said, when I first started this, I was really, really rigorous about how I did it because I wasn't as fluent in the cosmic energy as I am now. It is through rigorous practice, research, study that I have gotten to the level that I am at, where I don't need to pull the chart. I certainly don't need to organize like my chart pulls the way that I used to. I don't need to like write it all down. I just know now. And I think that's really important to say, because especially if you are somebody who like, the reason why tarot and astrology are important foundational things for any witch, starseed, entity, whatever, is because it allows you to develop a relationship of like a communication relationship with spirit, with energy, outside of talking to one another. It allows you to develop your intuition because these are non-corporeal energies that are channeled through absolutely everything. But when we're working with, what specifically, I feel like when we're working with the cards, it's more of Akashic records. When we're working with astrology, it's also like being channeled through celestial bodies, and like that energy does have a role to play in how our bodies interact with energy that's just flowing, you know. I hope that makes sense. But it allows us to better channel energy, better understand energy. And the longer that you do it and the more that you practice, the easier it gets, the less that you have to write everything down like I used to have to do. Like I used to separate everything like by the sign. I started with the sun sign and I like wrote down all the signs from there. And then I wrote down every placement that was in each and every sign and like every house that was there. And it was just this whole thing. And I don't have to do that anymore because I've done the work of practice. And I've done I've done the work and I practiced. And now I don't need any of that really to corroborate what I know to be true, but can sometimes doubt. And I think that's really important for me to say, to preface this reading, because there's a lot of challenging information that's going to be coming out. And it's going to be, you know, stuff that's like, we kind of already knew a lot of this stuff to be true, but we may have been discouraged from believing that it was true. We may have been told like, oh, I don't believe this or that, or like, where's the evidence? Where's the proof? Or it's just that people didn't care. One of the things that I channeled last night before as I was just doing some research for myself, was that it's important for us to not try to convince anybody else of our truths. We do not have to be right in their mind. We may be right, and it may be true for us. The thing of it is there are facts, and then there are other things, you know? And somebody's personal truth may not be a fact. What I'm experiencing and what I'm going through may be true and real to me, and that's valid. But that doesn't mean that somebody else has to have it be true and real for them. And I'm not talking about facts. I'm talking about truths. Because guess what? Racism is a sociological fact. The ideology is not true. And that's also scientifically proven. It's not true. However, so that's a different thing that we're talking about here. However, what may be true for me is like, this thing hurt my feelings. I am hurt by this thing and you hurt my feelings. And that may be true for me. But, you know, I'm not doing the best job of explaining this, I think. Essentially, people don't need to, you know, you don't need to convince anyone else of your truths, of what you know to be true, essentially. They don't have to, and it can still be true for you. Somebody can say, I didn't hurt your feelings. Like, what are you talking about? And it did hurt your feelings. And it's still true, regardless if they accept it or not. And you don't have to convince them that that thing is true. You don't have to, you may see something in somebody that they don't see in themselves. And you don't have to convince them that that thing is true. We may see things in the world that other people cannot perceive of. And it's not our job necessarily to convince other people that these things are true. In many ways, it's simply our job to be ourselves and to live in our truth. And it's only really important for us to accept, and validate our truths. It's not for anybody else. You know what I mean? So let's get into it. Saturn retrograde in Aquarius until the 11th of October, Mercury retrograde in Gemini, which it rules, and starting on the 29th of May until the 22nd of June, when Mercury will go direct. The 20th of June, however, is the first day of summer. It is the summer solstice. That means that the sun is entering Cancer. Jupiter is retrograde in Pisces until it goes direct on the 18th of October. So this is why we call it retrograde season, because guess what? Y'all want to be like, oh my God, like all these planets are going retrograde. Sis, that happens every single year. Saturn goes retrograde every year. Jupiter goes retrograde every year. Neptune goes retrograde every year. Pluto goes retrograde, I'm pretty sure every year, if not every, like, I know Venus goes retrograde every 1.5 years. And it also has a very eccentric orbital pattern, Venus. And so if you're somebody who's actually interested in astrology, I would really suggest you study astronomy as well, because it's really important to understand those things. These are things that happen. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to catastrophize about. It simply is what it is. Retrograde energy calls us to be introspective. It calls us to go inward. And that's certainly something, I'm just going to pull up the chart actually. That's something that, you know, this is the chart for, today. We have a grand trine. I'm going to get into that. But that's certainly something that people who don't know themselves and do not have healthy relationships with themselves are, of course, desperately afraid of. Of course. And so, yeah, when you don't face yourself, when you are cultivating all of these cells, disparate, fragmented cells in the shadows of your psyche, because you refuse to allow them to see the light of day, because you are so afraid of this innate sense of wrongness. That's what I get from Saturn. Let me show you all. Get my spotlight going. Saturn being here in Aquarius, in the 8th house. So do understand, this all has to do with that like core Persephone / Eris, Athena thing that I've been talking about. So with Saturn and Aquarius, it's really about like uncovering what was in the past that prevents forward advancement in evolution, which has been keeping us out of flow. And that's why with Aquarius, it's about explosion. It is about socially reprehensible things, because it is about revolution, and revolution is socially reprehensible. Society, you know, thrives on compartmentalization and keeping us in boxes and keeping us in categories so that we will be easily controlled. And it's essentially about farming our lives, farming our energy, farming our personhood. So this innate sense of wrongness is what I got when I pulled my notes, because, you know, with it being in the 8th house, it has issues of sex and money and about yourself and like what, and there's even this tendency to take on the issues of others, because, you know, Aquarius does have to do with our community at large and has to do with the collective. And so I got like, there's this innate sense of wrongness that is bred into us ideologically, because we are dealing with air signs here, and we are dealing with Saturn, which has to do with systems. And how do we build a prison within ourselves? A prison in our minds is what I get. Because when I pulled this chart, we have the moon at 19 degrees and 4 seconds in Libra. And the moon is making a trine to Saturn is making a grand trine, actually. There's a grand trine here. It's the moon in the 4th house in Libra. making a trine to Saturn in the 8th house in Aquarius, making a trine to Venus in the 12th in Gemini, and that is making a trine back to the moon. And so I know I've heard so much about Venus being in the 12th, and it has to do with secrecy and solitude for introspection, as well as compassion for the oppressed. And to me, this is a transmission of divine wisdom. Sacred sexuality is one thing that's been really coming up for me. And like this sacral chakra clearing and this Svadhisthana reintegration, because we have had this desecrated feminine matrix, which is the false matrix, where it has been inseminated with lies and systems of oppression that and I get bottom of the deck temperance. And I get bottom of the deck from the Tarot del Fuego, temperance, and I'll tell you why. And I get Queen of Wands, and I'll tell you why. These go together. Because we're really just learning how to be in our power and accepting our power after years and years, generations, in fact, of denying our power, of having it bullied away from us. But the thing is, we accepted that we accepted powerlessness. We ceded our power to these energies and agents of destruction that sought to take it from us, you know? And we allowed that to happen. So with Venus in the 12th, I feel like this is that, you know, oppressed femininity that has so much shame that disallows us from being able to be the people that we want to be, to show up as the people that we deserve to show up as, because it's our birthright. Simply for virtue of existing, we are allowed to show up as who and what we are. So this energy is calling for us to mindfully engage with relationships and do our best not to hold too tight to anything, because and so this is Venus being in Gemini, and we have a 4 placement stellium in Gemini right now, with the Sun, the North Node, Venus, and Mercury being here. But Mercury is going to be retrograde as of the 29th, as I said, until Cancer season. And it's important to recognize that, because Mars is in Cancer. And Mars is going to be in Cancer until and then Venus will be entering Cancer on the 2nd of June. Mars is going to be in Cancer until the 11th, when it goes into Leo. And the thing about Leo is Leo has a lot to do with narcissism. An inverted Leo is that pompous, like, I'll rip your head off if you think that you're challenging me. Who do you think that you are? Don't you know who I am? Kind of energy. It's like maladaptive energy of like feeling unseen, unheard, not respected, like you don't have any impact, like your power has been taken away from you. And you have to have all of this false bravado, all of this false pride, Leo, this all of this false pride in order to, you know, get what you want, which ultimately is simply to be loved. That's what all of us want, is to have our pack, to have our pride, to be loved and to love freely and as fully as we want to. And that is something that's so important. And that is robbed of us when we squander opportunities to get what we truly want, when we feed into this system that we've been indoctrinated into, and there's this innate sense of wrongness. And before I even go on, I want to say that on a global level, on a macrocosmic level, what's going to be happening in this time, in this retrograde season, you will see that we have Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. Here it's going to be in the 7th house, but Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn. Okay, my friends, that is powerful, really powerful. Go back to that video. We have Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, which it is the home of. Very powerful. I believe Uranus has pretty recently went direct, and I'm just checking my calendar to see if it's going to be going retrograde at all. Uranus will be retrograde in Taurus on the 20th of August. Yeah. And then I believe in the beginning of next year, it will go direct. And so in October, we have Pluto direct on the 6th. We have Saturn direct on the 11th. And we have on the 18th, Mercury direct in Libra and Jupiter direct in Aquarius. And then on the 20th, we have the full moon in Aries. Because then on the 23rd, we have the start of Scorpio season, and on the 31st, we have Saturn. It is so important for us to embody, and then so we have the full moon in Aries and the new moon in Libra, and there's just so much energy with Libra right now, so much energy with Libra this year. And then we have Venus in Sagittarius. I feel like that is important. So much that we have to learn and cultivate. And these nuggets of wisdom are going to be the light that carries us out over through this dark night that happens every single year. You know, we use the natural calendar, which starts with the equinox, in my book anyway, which starts with the vernal equinox. That's my new year, the start of Aries season. So the start of Libra season is that descent into the darkness. The things that we are learning now, take note, because they are going to be what brings you light in the darkness, because we are to be light in the darkness. And why does this matter? Because when I pulled the chart, as I said, it was Venus in Gemini in the 12th, but no, it was Libra, the Libra moon aspect in the 4th, 19 degrees and 4 seconds. And I said, let me look at the Sabian symbol of this. It's phase 199, a gang of robbers in hiding. I've been telling y'all about these corrupt systems of oppression, right? There's no denying that. So we're not even going to get into it. It's not arguable. So we're not even going to get into it. What you want to know now is that as Saturn is retrograde and as Mercury is retrograde in Gemini during Gemini season, all of this energy here, and let's go to the chart of Mercury retrograde. We actually have Fortuna here in the 5th house in Gemini at the start of retrograde of Gemini, Mercury retrograde in Gemini. We have a 5 placement stellium, the Sun, the North Node, which are going to be conjunct shortly thereafter. Venus, Mercury, which is at home there. And let's think about who is ruled by Venus. It's Libra and Taurus. We just finished Taurus season. We just finished seeing what we really, truly value and what truly impacts our quality of life and what we cannot stand and what we cannot stand to live without. What we cannot stand to live with and what we cannot stand to live without. And Libra. which, as I said, is having a very big moment as the scales are being balanced in this karmic dance, as the new age sets in and the karmic contracts are dissolved. This dissolution, this disillusion, right? That has to do with Pisces, the matrix, that womb, that cosmic womb that we exist in, the universe, that cosmic mother, Shakti. Jupiter, father of the universe, is now in Neptune, coming to clear out all of those shadows, all of that darkness that has been being projected from this false matrix, this depraved system. So what does this mean on a global scale? Revelations about all that stuff that a lot of y'all wanted to act like wasn't real, even though the evidence has been like literally in your face. There's no hiding from it anymore. There's no hiding from it. And I spoke about this on IG stories. I spoke about this. I've been speaking about it. You know what I mean? I feel like there's going to be a rise in white nationalism. I feel like all of the things that were happening back before the quarantine started and before the pandemic hit the Western world is going to be in this, like this return. This eternal return is the thing that I keep thinking. That is a term that Eve Ewing, the writer and sociologist, used to talk about lynching, actually. But it is this eternal return because linear time does not exist. And we can't just move forward and erase the past. It always comes with us. It is integrated into our bodies. The spiritual signature of these actions exists. And what we must reconcile the past in order to actually transcend it. And we're not making it through to the other side unless that happens, which none of us are making it out of this alive because this is life and you die. But like, you know, the next few years are going to be really hard if you're not willing to evolve internally to stand in the light. It's going to be real hard for you. And no one's going to want to be around you. Nobody who's worth being around anyway. You live in the shadow. You want to live in the shadow. It's going to get real fucking dark. You don't wonder why your manifestations aren't coming true or why you feel ill and unwell and isolated and alienated. Maybe you got to do some work on yourself, within yourself, to open up to the light and stop feeding into these sick, sad systems. Remember Daria, Sick, Sad World? Temperance, Queen of Wands, coming to really understand our power. Temperance is a Sagittarius card. We have the full moon in Sagittarius, which is in the same sign as the South Node. There's a liberation, there's a release. We are being allowed to get free from the karmic debt as it balances itself, because on the 23rd, that is today, with Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, we have the moon, as I said, making this grand trine in Libra. Phase 199, a gang of robbers in hiding. I can't make this up. That is a Sabian symbol. It is about protesting against disharmonic social privilege. Yeah, you want to tell, and then it says, how valid is this protest? You want to tell everybody about what they're doing, what they're doing, what they're doing, what, you know, what about like, oh my God, you got a little sawdust in your eye. What's wrong with you? What about what we are doing? When we have a whole plank in our eye, what about what we are doing? What about what we've got going on? What about the destruction and the chaos that we are manifesting in our lives and the lives of others on an everyday basis? Because we are unwilling to let go of ego and self. What about that? What about then? Spiritual revolution beyond performative revolution is what we need now. It is the quietest revolution. It is internal. And on a quantum level, we transform everybody who comes into contact with us by doing that work. You feel guilty about how your privilege hurts other people? Start leveraging your privilege to help those people that it hurts. Undermine this system. And I will define for you all again what it is, because I feel like I haven't defined it in a while. What I define as the pillars of colonialism, because I do define the disease as colonialism, which is a parasite that comes into a space and feeds off of it and takes everything from it. Look at all of the colonies of the Western powers and Japan, because people tend to forget that Japan colonized our country, and China as well. But we tend to think only about Europe and America, and then we also forget Canada. Look at every country that has been colonized and what is happening there today. These countries may not be under literal colonial rule anymore, like legal colonial rule, but what are they except hosts for the parasite of capitalism and colonialism? I'm a first-generation American, and I'm also, my family, we are here because we were made refugees during decolonization. And it wasn't safe to live in my country. It was especially unsafe for my family. So yeah, I can tell you firsthand, first and second hand, I guess. But no, I can tell you firsthand that these are parasitic, like colonialism is a parasite. And so what are the 5 pillars of colonialism as defined within this practice, Clarity by V? Aspiritualism, white supremacy and racism, cis heteropatriarchy, capitalism, and industrialism. And since and I mean, all of that is predicated also on slave society. And we're not just talking about America and the triangle trade slavers. No, we're even talking about as far back as Egypt and Rome, because those were slave societies too. And let's not forget that there's a very active slave trade going on in the Middle East. And let's not forget that human trafficking is literally slavery, and that's still going on. And it's easier and less scary to speak up about it for a lot of people. It's easier and a lot less scary, but it's also much more cowardly. These are literal facts, and people are experiencing this right now in real time. And I'm just going to say it, what we're doing on a collective level as revolution is not enough. The idea of this Libra moon at 19 degrees and 4 seconds is group protest. It's about doing the work with those who actually want to do it. And first and foremost, it's about how can I serve my collective? The best thing that I can do to serve my collective is decolonize myself. And that is a lifelong practice. And each and every single one of us has to practice this lifelong practice all our lives long. It is not necessarily, because there is direct action is a very important part of revolution. But when it comes down to it and the people performing direct action are hypocrites, and more than that, dogmatic hypocrites who are unwilling to change or to learn or to grow, because they're unwilling to face themselves and to face their shadow, that is when we have a problem, because there's no solution being made. So it says group protest, and I say doing the work with those who actually want to do it. It is not our job. I'm just giving you these facts. If you want to believe them, you can. If you don't want to believe them, you don't have to. Nobody has to watch my videos. Nobody has to schedule readings or book sessions with me. Nobody has to donate to the Care Network. Nobody has to participate in this with me. Nobody has to do that. I'm going to do it regardless because it's my truth. But those who want to live in my truth with me, because it's their truth as well, those are the people that I want to work with. I don't want to go out and change people's minds. I want to tell the truth. And I want to live the truth. Because guess what? Since everyone always wants to make magic about manifestation and forget that witches were born to protect those who are unprotected, those who are exploited, which includes this planet, the animals, the children, biological females, trans people, queer people, Black people, Indigenous people, people of color. That's who witches were born to protect. So if you identify as a witch and it's just about manifestation to you and doing love spells on unwitting, like, people who don't care about you and you need to get over it and forcing your will on other people, if that's what you think being a witch is about and that's what you identify as, you really need to think again. Because you have a sacred duty to do this work. And once again, we come to Venus in the 12th. Compassion for the oppressed, which means to me, the transmission of divine wisdom. Which means to me, this is Morrigan energy. The Morrigan is Celtic, Irish, triple goddess. Kali, Kali Ma. Hathor, in fact. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here to do, is to tell the truth. And we don't have to physically liberate people because they'll do it themselves when we tell the truth. And when we make living in the truth so attractive that they don't have much choice but to do it. This energy is about building our own world because the world that we live in is not the world that we want. And that's the beautiful thing about here now. We have that power to do that. You want to know what the true group protest is? Mass exodus. You want to know what the true boycott is? Mass exodus. Because what are they going to do? Who is going to buoy industrialism? Who's going to buoy capitalism? And how do we do that in the here and the now? Well, it's a process and it takes time. How do we do that? By making it so attractive that the people who think that they have absolutely no other way understand that they do, and it is worthwhile. It is worth the divestment. And that requires us being in service of the collective, our community, not solely self, lowercase self, not capital sacred self. So that innate sense of wrongness that we get with Saturn and Aquarius is being not with Saturn and Aquarius, but with Saturn in Aquarius being retrograde in the 8th house, there is an excavation going on of that Paris, of just getting out all of that ground, digging up all of that ground to find that poisonous seed that has been planted, to root it out and to throw that out the window. And then it requires us doing the work of healing our spirit, healing ourself. We cannot do that for anyone else if we cannot do that for ourselves. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde, and then I'm going to talk about the cards that I just pulled from the Tarot del Fuego. So, okay, this is, whoa, big effing deal. And I didn't pull the Sabian symbol for this. I don't know why I didn't. But look, the moon is at 26 degrees and 45 seconds in Capricorn in the 12th house. And guess who is also there? 26 degrees and 34 seconds, Pluto retrograde. So I'm going to talk about 26 degrees of Capricorn, where the moon and Pluto are, because those are two very powerful divine feminine water aspects. And we know there's just so much healing here. So with Mercury retrograde, actually, this is where the temperance comes in. Our power is in our actions and our words and our voice. That's how we co-create with the universe. Queen of Wands. We're stepping into that power. We're coming to understand how we manifest in the most innate ways, the most innate ways, and understanding our inherent divinity and power that we've been told we didn't have. We get the temperance card because as I told you, more is being revealed, and it's powerful. It's earth shattering. It's groundbreaking. We have, Uranus and Lilith still in Taurus, right? And the 𝗰𝗀 is there as well. This really has to do with our deeper, our innermost, it has a lot to do with our inner child. It has to do with our trauma in a lot of ways. And it really has a lot to do with our inner life and what we find comfort in and why. And that all has to do with the past story. You know what I mean? And so with Capricorn at 26 degrees, the Sabian symbol is a nature spirit dancing in the iridescent mist of a waterfall. And it's about the ability to perceive the hidden and creative spirit of natural phenomena. Where more is being revealed, as I've been saying, and that's why this temperance card is important, because we are not being called to act. No, in fact, in absolutely every aspect of Saturn being retrograde, Mercury being retrograde, and retrograde, anything being retrograde, we are not being called to act out. We are being called to go within. We are being called to move that which must be shifted within ourselves. Because as I said, it's not about anyone else. It's about ourselves. When people start awakening, we have this tendency to want to go out and proselytize to the world. And we're still unclear on a lot of what we're experiencing and what we're figuring out. I know, because I've done this. But that's not what this is about. This is about reconciliation with ourselves, clarifying our own spirit, clarifying our own soul, integrating these light codes coming in, and shifting with the flow of the cosmos. Their Neptune is in Pisces in the second house, conjunct Jupiter right here, and it's making a sextile to this right here in the 12th house in Capricorn. And that's just before Neptune and Jupiter go retrograde the following month. 5 days apart from one another until October. I just want to make sure. October. Neptune. No, Neptune is going to go direct a different time, but Pluto will be direct. Pluto, Saturn, Mercury, Jupiter. I believe that Neptune actually goes direct in the beginning of the year. December 1st, it will go direct. But end of December, we have Venus retrograde in Capricorn. Anyways, Chiron's going to be going direct. I mean, going to be going retrograde in July as well. So this is just really more of this process of the reconfiguration of self, of understanding how we have been disempowered, specifically by allowing ourselves to be, specifically by casting our pearls before swine. And this is stuff that we've been seeing over the past 3 years when Saturn was in Capricorn, which in Vedic astrology it still is. And I feel like this process is really going to touch ground more once Saturn reaches Aquarius in Vedic astrology. So we are being asked to pause and go within and really allow ourselves to be transformed. We have this 5 placement stellium here in Gemini in the 5th house. And I talked about Leo. I feel like there's a lot there, like, wow, because this is all coming back from the Lionsgate portal 888 last year. There's a video on my IGTV, go watch it. It's when I was doing lives still. The Sun, the North Node, Venus and Mercury and Fortuna are all in Gemini in the 5th house. And more is just being revealed. And it's really important that we make space for these light codes to come in and to ground, because honestly, when we do that, we align ourselves with the flow of the cosmos. We open ourselves up to love. I feel like we're really going to be getting all of these opportunities we're going to see everything as an opportunity, actually, to transform our lives and our worlds for the better for us. But it's important to remember that that must be grounded in doing better for the collective. So what do I have to say about you know, these two retrogrades, and how would I recommend we go about it? As I said, pause, just pause. Don't go into it guns blazing. It's gonna be slow. It's gonna ask us to like take some time. And some of the notes that I have for Saturn, Saturn retrograde, especially with Venus being here, and Venus being here, where are you? Venus being here in the 12th, in Gemini, it's like love is in bud, not in full bloom. So it's time for us to take our time and really feel into our relationships mindfully, heart-centered, from this upper dimensional understanding of what life has to offer. And I get from the Work Your Light Oracle deck, Warrior Woman, have you answered your deepest calling? Starseeds, your deepest calling is to be here to help ascend this earth out of, you know, the chaos that it's been descending into. And I see Starseed, what lights you up? And this came out in the reverse position because we have to accept who we are in our greater mission. And that's going to be really coming to fore with these, especially with Gemini, with the Mercury retrograde in Gemini on the 29th. Okay, where we felt like we were in some sort of a spiritual prison. Well, that's not going to be so much with Saturn weakened in this way, on the, like, with Saturn in Aquarius retrograde until the 11th of October. You best believe that you need to show up brand new. You best believe it. Keep on doing it, because when we get to the other side of this, we're going to see the beauty that we will have cultivated. So I get the 10 of Wands in the direct position, in the 10 of Cups in the indirect position. And he is on his saddle, on his horse, going up this mountain. He doesn't look super happy about it, quite honestly. He's got his arrows. He's on a bit of a dangerous journey, is what I feel. He's got to go out into the world and do what he has to do. And then the 10 of Cups in the reverse position, the 10 of Cups in the reverse position has a family, and they're in the water, and I feel like all of the cups are upright and they're full, and they're kind of, you know, there's a dragonfly because there's transformation. It's in the indirect position. So, the 𝗵𝗁, which is, it's in the 4th house, it's in Libra with this moon here for today. We've been talking about that moon, and it's making this grand trine energy. And like, the past is the past, and we have to go out and do what we have to do to be able to bring this family back together, because, you know, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and their holy child, this holy grail sort of deal here, requires us stepping into our power, and requires us doing what we have to do, regardless of how scared we are. It's not about martyrdom. It's not about martyrdom or, you know, putting ourselves in real danger. It's just about being honest and living our truth, because, you know, we sacrifice so much of the joy that we can access when we tell these emotional lies, and when we live outside of our truth, our true calling, when we do the opposite of what we know we're supposed to do. We really let ourselves down. We really abandon ourselves. So this is where we need to center. This is what we need to focus in on in this time. How do I serve the collective while serving myself? How do I make this easier on myself so that I can do the work that I need to do for the collective? What is it I'm being called to do? How can I realistically get aligned with that? And, you know, the Temperance card, it's really about, like, there's a lot of introspection. There's a lot of kind of like navel gazing here that we're being called to. And I get the 5 of Swords in the indirect position as the bottom of the deck of the Cosmic Tarot. And what that means to me is, gone are these ways of people pleasing, gone are these ways of trying to fit in and trying to be accepted and trying to do what others want from us because we recognize how it doesn't serve us. And yeah, it's really about boundaries. It's really about what we let into our, what we let in and what we let out, really is. So being a conscious co-creator, being mindful is super important. And yeah, I feel like just being open to evolving out of the old ways of being, which may feel like, you know, a bit challenging perhaps, but these are all opportunities for peace, and the discomfort means that it's working as these old karmic contracts dissolve out of our etheric DNA. So say yes, like literally say yes when you feel the opportunity come to you, when you feel like these thoughts about like, oh, I want this thing, I like this thing, you know, like, oh, I would want to do that. Just like, that is spirit showing up and saying like, you want it? Say yes, literally within yourself. And then when it's offered to you IRL or into the tangible reality, say yes then too, through your actions, through your words, an emphatic yes. And we get the 7 of Swords in the direct position as well, right underneath the bottom of the deck. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, that has to do with that balance that's being struck for sure. For sure. The manipulations, the lies, all of that stuff is falling apart. Don't be a part of it. Don't perpetuate it. And when you trust your intuition here, there's a lot of karma clearing, and don't let, it's not about anyone else, it's about ourselves. You can't save anyone else. They can save themselves only. So it's really important to just do the work to save oneself. And I know that might sound like, well, why are you making these videos then? This is my calling. I have no choice but to do this. You think that I ever thought that I was going to do this? Like, I talk about this all the time. I never thought that I was going to do this. And when I started doing it, it was just like, oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. I never thought that this was what I was going to do. And it is ultimately pretty selfish because like, this is all I want to do is study magic all day, you know, and talk about it with all of you. And just create a new world and heal myself through sharing all of this information, you know? So I love you all truly and deeply. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because there's really not that much more to say. I feel, of course, very tempted to make this video open to the public because I do feel like there's a lot of important stuff that I said here, but I'm going to keep it just for the Patreon because like I said, I'm going to be figuring out what like future content really looks like, especially as I like get closer to not having to be a full-time student. And you know, what the future of clarity is going to look like in more tangible ways. So be considering that. And yeah, I just wanted to let y'all know I love you truly and deeply, and thank you so much for supporting me in this journey and allowing me to be a support to you in this journey. And my books will be opening officially back up sometime in June. Because I want time to do what I want to do. You know, this year's been really rigorous and exhausting. So I just love you all so much. And I just like I just want to spread that love. Okay. I hope that this has been helpful. Have a beautiful, beautiful, peaceful, restful, informative, transformative retrograde season.